The discovery of the first Dead Sea Scrolls in a remote Judean desert cave in 1947 is considered one of the greatest archaeological events of the 20th century. East of the city of Jerusalem, the mountainous landscape plummets 1,200 meters to the lowest point on Earth. This is the Dead Sea. Many biblical stories are set in the caves and hills of the region. Here, King David fled from King Saul and hid in the desert's mountain caves. Here, Jesus struggled with the devil, resisting temptation. Here, the community of Qumran hid their most valuable treasures, scrolls of ancient wisdom and religious insight. For thousands of years, the Judean desert held secrets by the Jews of Qumran, a group most scholars refer to as the Qumran community. Much of this community was made up of the Essenes. This strict sect of Judaism used the caves to protect their literary treasures, which were scrolls hidden in sealed jars, placed deep within the caves perched high in the area of the Dead Sea. These scrolls, and their secrets, were revealed by a young Bedouin shepherd one day in 1947. Prompted by the loss of one of his sheep, a shepherd of the Aramaic tribe left his flock to search for the stray. While searching, he found an opening in the steep hillside. Curious, as many young men are, he tossed a stone into the cave. The rock answered with the sound of pots breaking, and he was compelled to investigate. He had stumbled on the greatest find of the century, the Dead Sea Scrolls. In the caves were a number of pots. The majority of the pots were empty, begging the question, had vandals and thieves been there first, stealing much of the precious treasure? Some of the jars were still intact, with lids sealed in place. He opened the seals to reveal the ancient scrolls. They were wrapped in linen and blackened with age. No rubies, no diamond, no gold. Just a bunch of old scrolls turning to dust before his eyes. He was not impressed. Wondering if he could trade them for anything of value, he and several companions brought the scrolls to Kando, a Bethlehem antiquities dealer, for appraisal. Kando seemed to recognize the age and value of the find, so he sent the Bedouins back to the caves in search of more treasures. They returned with a total of 7 scrolls. The boys had no idea of the value of their find, and so the Bedouins sold 4 of the 7 scrolls to Kando and 3 to a second antiquities dealer named Salahi. Kando in turn resold the 4 scrolls to Archbishop Samuel, head of the Syrian Orthodox monastery of St. Mark in Jerusalem. Soon after the announcement of the find, Bedouin treasure hunters and archaeologists descended on the site and the surrounding caves. Ultimately, they would find hundreds of ancient scrolls and fragments, including the oldest existing copies of the Hebrew Bible. The scrolls ranged in dates from the 3rd century BCE, mid-Second Temple period, to the 1st century of the Common Era, before the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE. The scrolls provide an unprecedented picture of the diverse religious beliefs of ancient Judaism and of daily life during the Second Temple period when Jesus lived and preached. While Hebrew was the most frequently used language in the scrolls, about 15% were written in Aramaic and several in Greek. The scrolls' materials are made up mainly of parchment, although some are papyrus, and the text of one scroll is engraved on copper. A quarter of these non-biblical manuscripts are sectarian and reflect the life and philosophy of a specific community. These core texts consist of eschatological biblical commentaries, apocalyptic texts, liturgical works, and regulations or rules that govern community life. In the early days of scrolls research, scholars attributed all of the Qumran scrolls to the Essene community. In recent years, however, this consensus has been challenged and modified, though many scholars still maintain a link between the Essenes and the Dead Sea Scrolls. In that time, the Essenes were one of the 3 basic sects of Judaism. Jewish sects described in ancient sources were the Pharisee, the Sadducee, and the Essene sect. It is thought that the majority of the scrolls were written and hidden by the Essenes. One of the many discoveries from the caves of Qumran is a scroll given the name, the Book of Giants.